to recite. Quran in Surah Nahl, which I recited at the very beginning, verse number 96, says, Man amila salihan min dhakarin aw untha. So I'll start off slowly, and those who know me, those who listen to my majalis, then I pick up the pace. So just be with me for a certain basic initial time, and then we'll move very quickly. Quran says, Man amila salihan, whoever does amal salih, good deeds, min dhakarin aw untha, from males or females, wa huwa mu'min, and he's a mu'min, he's got iman. فَلَنُحْيِيَنَّهُ حَيَاةً طَيِّبَةً. We will give them. So it starts off with whoever does amal saleh and whoever has iman. Basically, in this verse, a summary before I go into details is that God is giving a prophecy, a promise of two bounties, of two compensations for a group of people that have two categories of sifat and attributes. He says, Man amila salihan, the first category, the first sifat, the first attribute is those who do good deeds. In this, when he comes to this point, he says, irrelevant of the gender, min dhakarin, whether it is a male or untha or female, irrelevant. To whoever does good deeds, whether he's a male or a female, and sometime in the future when we are over here, we will discuss that in the akhirat, in spiritual elevation, in the martabat, in the rank, in the maqam, in the akhirat, gender plays no role. Whether a person is a female or a male, it has no impact on a person's rank, maqam, martabat in the akhirat. And this is what he's specifying in detail some other time. But here God is saying, whoever does good deeds, whether he's male or a female, وَهُوَ مُؤْمِن, the second attribute that he should have is that he should have iman. Amal saleh and iman, when you have a conjoination of these two attributes, God says, I will give such a character, such an individual, or this particular group of people two compensations, one in dunya, one in akhirah. In dunya, لَنُحْيِيَنَّهُ حَيَاةً طَيِّبًا. We will give them a hayat tayyiba. I'll explain all of this, we still have some time. لَنُحْيِيَنَّهُ حَيَاةً طَيِّبًا. We will give them a tayyib life in this world. Dunya mein hayat tayyiba denge. And while I'm speaking, I've been asked and given an opportunity or an option that I can recite the Masahib in English or in Urdu. And most of the times I'll try to recite in Urdu so that English and Urdu are compensated. Unless there's a specific respect for English. It says we will give you two compensations, one in dunya, one in akhirah. In dunya, لَنُحْيِيَنَّهُ حَيَاةً طَيِّبًا. We will give this individual or this category of people who've got iman and amal saleh together in this world, we'll give them a hayat tayyiba, a good life, a tayyib life. We'll explain what that is. وَلَنَجْزِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْرَهُمْ بِأَحْسَنِ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. And we will reward them in the akhirat for the acts of goodness that they did in this world, بِأَحْسَنِ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ, in the best possible way. So in dunya, Allah will give this particular category who's got amal salih and iman, hayat tayyiba, and in the akhirat He will give them and compensate them in the best possible manner for the actions that they did in this world. Clear? Now let's go. The moment we can discuss in this particular verse, there are probably 4 to 5 points that can be discussed, and each can be a majlis of an hour. The relation with God, the absolute irrelevance of gender. How does it even play a role in a spiritual upliftment? Or is gender absolutely out of the equation when a person wants to transgress? And you see this in the personalities that we have. Somebody of the caliber of Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. Amir al-Mu'mineen passed away in the year when he was 63 years. We've got numerous traditions that said The only partner for Fatima was Ali, and the only partner for Ali was Hazrat Zahra salamullahi alayha. Hazrat Zahra passed away when she was 18. Amir al-Mu'mineen passed away when he was 63. A person with 18 years of ibadat in the eyes of God is equivalent at par with somebody who is 63 years of life and ibadat and itaat in the eyes of God. Meaning what? If they are similar to each other, an 18-year-old woman, a female woman, is at par with a 63-year-old man. Meaning what? Gender plays no role. But anyway, we're not discussing that right now, some other time. Now so we're going to pick up just one point, because we don't have sufficient time. If we had an hour, 15 minutes here, we could have gone into detail. But here I just want to pick up one point, Hayat tayaba. That if somebody has iman and does good deeds appropriately, we will, in this world, the reward that we will give them is Hayat tayaba. Many times when you listen and you read a certain word, you immediately understand that in addition to this, there are certain other aspects that can then be discussed with this. So the moment you hear Hayat tayyiba, you realize that Hayat tayyiba, the opposite of it is Hayat khabitha. So what is Hayat tayyiba? Hayat means life, tayyiba means good life. And हम उर्दू में अगर जो हम कहें, if you recite it in a very simple way, वो hayat, that life that is very बाबरकत, वो हयात की जो बाबरकत है, वो हयात की जो सखावत, वो हयात की जो दूसरों को मदद कर सकती है, that life that can help others, that life that is full of barakah, that life that results in something that is beneficial to the people. This is called hayat tayyiba. Opposite of hayat tayyiba is hayat khabitha, that life that is khabith, not beneficial to the others, detrimental to the others, harmful to the others. Let me give you an example of Hayat tayyiba to explain to you that if Allah does not help us and grace us with Hayat tayyiba, when we would fall into Hayat khabitha and then see where it goes off into. One example I'll give you of Hayat khabitha, then one example of Hayat tayyiba, and then one example of the example that Allah says that somebody who does good deeds and who has iman, in the akhirat I will compensate him in the best possible manner. And then masab. You've all heard of an individual, I'm trying to explain of Hayat khabitha before we come to Hayat tayyiba. If the tawfiq of God is not with us and we end up with Hayat khabitha, this is how we become. And we seek refuge in Allah, na'udhu billah, that ever He turns away and He withholds us His guidance to us, that we fall into this. A person whose name you have regularly heard, Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi. Have you not heard about his name? Everybody's heard about his name. Even the Sunni scholars, they say. Forget about the Shia scholars. He was an anti-Shia out and out. I mean, he would say, till I don't see the blood of a Shia being killed and shed and spilled, I can't enjoy my meals. This was the kind. The Sunni scholars, forget the Shias we know what it is. Even the Sunni scholars have gone on record to have stated that if all the Bani Umayyah, the Khulafa of Bani Umayyah, which were amongst the Dhalimeen, if they were to be collected and their madhalim were to be placed on one pan, and the tyranny and the madhalim and the cruelty of Hajjaj to be placed on the other pan, the cruelty of Hajjaj, one person would overcome all the madhalim of Bani Umayyah. You understood this man? Now I want to show you how Hayat khabitha results into. When that tawfiq of God does not come, how a person ends up with a life in this world that becomes Hayat khabitha, a life that is of no value, a life that has no barakah, a life that is not beneficial to anybody. It's only detrimental to himself and to the others. We've got Shab-e-Jummah tonight. Very shortly, I think we've not recited Ziyarat-e-Waratha. Yeah, we're going to recite Ziyarat-e-Waratha. One of the things that you will recite in Ziyarat-e-Waratha is Ziyarat of Shuhada-e-Karbala. Here we are staying from. 2 weeks ago I was in Karbala. We are standing in front of the Dhari of the Shuhada. We recite the same thing. Kayfiyat will change because there we are seeing the Dhari, the Ganja Shahida. Over here we're just epitomizing into our minds. But when you recite the Zarat al-Shuhada, what do you recite? One of the things. Ya laytani kuntu ma'akum fa'afuza ma'akum. Don't we say that? Every Thursday. What is the translation? Ya laytani, oh how I wish. Ya laytani kuntu ma'akum. Oh how I wish I was with you in Karbala on Ashura. Fa'afuza ma'akum, so that I could then become as successful as you are. 22 million people descend in the land of Karbala on Ashura. If they go to Imam Hussein, they go to Habib ibn Mudahar, they will go to Ganj Shahida. 22 million people say, Assalamu alaikum ya awliya Allah wa ahibba. This is afuz, is fawz, is success. Continuously millions of people, whoever comes to Imam Hussein has to come and enter to the right and say Assalamu alaikum ya awliya Allah. This is fawz. Fawz means success. Fawz means maqam. Fawz means 22 million people coming and telling me Assalamu alaikum. And that is why we turn to them and say, Ya laytani, oh how I wish I was there with you, 72 people. Okay, that's not the correct number, but it's a mashhur. Ya laytani kuntu ma'akum. How I wish I was there with you people over there. Fa'afuza ma'akum. I would have been as successful as you are. This is what we say, yeah? Every Shab-e Jummah we say. Even now, today, inshallah, we will say, Bishart Hayat. There was another person who used to say the same thing. Ya laytani kuntu ma'akum fa'afuza ma'akum. How I wish I was there with you so that I could be successful with you. Who? Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi. But the only difference was that you and I turned to Imam Hussein and Habib ibn Mudahir and Hadrat Abdul Fadl Abbas alayhimus salam and to the Shuhada and say, oh, how I wish I was there with you so that I could have been killed and have become shaheed like you have become and have achieved the rank that no other shaheed has received. Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi would refer to the same incident of Karbala but refer to another party. He would say, Ya laytani kuntu ma'akum. Oh, how I wish, Umar Asad, I was with you so that I could be in Karbala to kill Hussein ibn Ali. He said the same thing. Ya laytani kuntu ma'akum. But he was saying, I wish I was with Umar Asad and Ibn Ziyad and Khuli and Shimr and Hurmala so that I could kill Imam Hussein alayhi salam. This is called Hayat Khabisa. And God says, this is what I will protect you if you've got Iman, one, and if you've got Amal Saleh, two. Because these form the fundamentals. Wal asr, innal insana lafi khusr. Everybody is in a loss, except illa alladhina amanu. Same two principles, Iman wa amalu salihat. Says, you do this, I will save you from Hayat Khabitha. If somebody says, Ya laytani kuntu ma'akum, oh Umar Asad, I wish I was there with you in Karbala, so I could have killed na'udhu billah, Imam Hussein alayhi salam. This life is no barakah. Not for himself, not for the others. But then opposite to this, you got a life which is Hayat tayaba. So one example, one masdaq over here for Hayat khabitha. One masdaq. The numerous, can't talk about everybody, you pick up one. One masdaq of Hayat tayyiba. Who? Allama Amini. You heard about Allama Amini? Allama Amini, Muhammad Abdul Hussein Amini, the author of the book Al-Ghadir. This book of Al-Ghadir, this book Al-Ghadir was written primarily to prove the incident of Al-Ghadir to this Ahl Tasannun and the objections of the Ahl Tasannun. Those who say it did not exist, it never took place. Those who said it took place, but for certain reason it was not very important. Or those who say it took place, but the meaning of Mawla was not Mawla, but as a friend. Allama Amini spent 40 years of his life to write this book, Al-Ghadir. After Al-Ghadir, he has completed every hujjat upon the Ahl Tasannun. Anybody from the Ahl Tasannun does not accept the Wilayat of Amirul Mu'mineen on the day of judgment, there is nothing that will help him out. Because everything has been done in Al-Ghadir. 20 volumes. He took 40 years to write this book. Out of 20 volumes, 11 volumes have been printed. Those 11 volumes that have been printed have been translated into Farsi and Persian in 22 volumes. This 20 volumes, he himself says, the Hayat al-Tayyibah we are talking about, It cannot come about except with the tawfiq of God, except with the help of God. You and I have no role in this world unless everything comes from God. Quran says, وَمَا بِكُم مِّن نِعْمَةٍ فَمِنَ اللَّهِ. Any ni'mat that you get comes from God. To do the service of Islam is the ni'mat of God. It comes from God. Is about him and Al-Ghadir. 20 volumes, took 40 years. In that he's collected right from the start of Al-Ghadir till the time he was there. He passed away less than 80 years ago. Everything in terms of riwayat, in terms of the aqwal of the Ahl Tasannun, in terms of the meanings of Mawla, in terms of the shu'ara and the poets, from the time this took place, the incident of Ghadir, till the time he was writing the books. You know what he writes himself? He says, you want to know Hayat tayaba, yeah? And then we need to compare. There's a reason I'm bringing this topic up now, leading up to Rajab. And tomorrow's khutbah is again the same thing, leading up to Rajab. Once we go into Rajab, I will link it up with today's majlis and tomorrow's khutbah. Allama Amini himself says, in order to write these 20 volumes of Al-Ghadir, understand when you say Hayat tayaba means what? He says, from start till the end, I personally have read 10,000 books. 10,000 books, honestly, between you and me, hands on heart. How many books do we read in a year? Islamic books. Hands on heart between you and me. This Tawdi'ul Masail of Ayatollah Sistani, which is supposed to be the way, the guiding light of how to live a life in this world. How many of us have even read this book from end to end, from cover to cover? How many of us? Don't tell me. Honestly with yourself. We're looking at Hayat Tayyaba. This person says, in order to defend the wilayat of Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam, I have read cover to cover 10,000 books. He would travel in these 40 years, numerous countries, into numerous cities, into every library that he would get information that there is something about Al-Ghadir, he would go and visit it. He says, in order to refer to and get references, cover to cover 10,000 books, references that are made to books, 100,000 books I've referred to. लाख किताबों का मैंने जो है वो मुताला किया, not full, but referred to them. Cover से cover जो है वो 10,000 किताबें. 40 years of his life. There's a person, he went to India because he came to know there's a library in Lucknow which had certain information about Al-Ghadir. The person who was traveling with him is narrating. He says, when I went with Allama Amini to India, he says in that particular time he stayed for 4 months. He's gone to Iran, he was in Iraq, he's gone to Syria, he's gone to numerous places. Wherever he could find out, he got an information that there is something about Al-Ghadir, he would go there. 40 years, yeah. Only on one thing, vilayat ki jo hai wo difa karna. He says, I was there with Allama Amini for 4 months. In these 4 months, he was into the library. He was in the library. I was shahid because I was accompanying him. He says 18 hours for 4 months in the library, day in and day out. He says in those 4 months, he made notes 4,000 pages. 4,000 A4 full-scale pages in 4 months. That means 1,000 pages in a month. That means 30 pages in a day he's writing notes. And then he's gone on to record to have stated, these people have wasted 40 years of my life to prove something that is adhar min ash-shams, that is more clear than a sun in the morning. And on the day of judgment, I will complain to God. There were so many other things that I needed to mention about the fadail of Amirul Mu'mineen, but these people forced me for an incident of Ghadir to waste 40 years of my life just to prove something that is more evident and manifest than the sun. This is called Hayat Tayyaba. Man amila salihan, whoever does good deeds, min dhakarin aw untha, male or female, wa huwa mu'min, he's got iman, lanuhyiyannahu hayatan tayyaba, we will give them hayat tayyaba. Compare this hayat tayyaba with that hayat khabisa when he says, ya laytani kuntu ma'akum, I wish I was there with you to kill Hussein ibn Ali, na'udhu billah. Zameen asman ka farq hai. But the second part is what Allah says. In dunya I will give you hayat tayyaba. This hayat tayyaba then will compensate, will turn into something in the akhirat وَلَنَجْزِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْرَهُمْ بِأَحْسَنِ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. And in the day of judgment, I will reward you in the best possible way that can be rewarded for your actions in this world. تو دنیا کو تو بتا دیا آپ کو. Let's come to the آخرت. حیات طیبہ دنیا میں ہو چکا. What about the آخرت? Same علامہ آمینی. His son is narrating. After my father passed away, he was buried. They were in Najaf. He says, I moved to Iran. But before moving to Iran, I went to meet one of his friends. One of his friends, Sayyid Muhammad Taqi Bahar al-Ulum. Now this Sayyid Muhammad Taqi Bahar al-Ulum is the grandson of Sayyid Mahdi Bahar al-Ulum. Now, look, there's not enough time, but I will, inshallah, sometime I'll get a time, I will tell you who the Sayyid Mahdi Bahar al-Ulum is. We need to know our ulama. We can't just sit with the people that we know right now. Oh, Ayatollah Sistani, Ayatollah Khamenei, Ayatollah Khomeini, Ayatollah Mohsen Lakim, Ayatollah Khuyan, bas, that's it. There are people who have done things and there are people who have reached maqam that you and I cannot even imagine. One of those individuals is Sayyid Mahdi Bahar al-Ulum. Ajaib maqam, right now it's not the time. Understand. Keep this as a deferment in some other lectures, inshallah, majalis kab hogi, to inshallah I'll present it to you. This Sayyid Muhammad Taqi Bahar, who's the grandson of Bahar al-Ulum, Sayyid Mahdi Bahar al-Ulum, was a friend of Allama Amini. So when Allama Amini passes away and then his son wants to migrate back from Najaf to Iran, he goes to meet his friend. Now he's narrating this. He's saying, as soon as I went to meet Sayyid Muhammad Taqi Bahar al-Ulum, he looked at me اور ایک مرتبہ جو ہے رونا شروع کر دیا. See, leading towards مسائل اردو میں ہم تبدیل کر دیں. ایک مرتبہ جو ہے وہ رونا شروع کیا. تو بیٹے نے کہا کہ یا سیدنا why you crying, رو کیوں رہے آپ؟ کہتے ہیں مجھے تم سے بات کرنی تھی اور مجھے تم سے ایک بات بتانی تھی تمہارے والد صاحب کے بارے میں. کہ کیا بات ہے؟ کہتے میں ہمیشہ یہ سوچا کرتا تھا. یہ خود مجتہد ہے, یہ خود مجتہد ہے سید محمد تقی بہار العلوم. کہتا میں ہمیشہ سوچا کرتا تھا کہ جو کام آپ کے بابا نے انجام دیا القدیر کے حوالے سے, جو کام آپ کے بابا نے انجام دیا, اس کا مقام اور اس کی قدر جو ہے وہ امیر المومنین کے نگاہ میں کیسی ہوگی, ہمیشہ میں سوچا کرتا تھا. دیکھیں جو علماء ہوتے ہیں وہ سمجھ سکتے ہیں کہ ایکڈیمک کام کس طرح ہوتا ہے, اس کی ویلیو کیا ہوتی ہے. آپ اور ہم سمجھ نہیں سکیں گے, میں تو نہیں سمجھ سکوں, آپ شاید سمجھ سکیں, لیکن علماء ہوتے ہیں. مثلا تفسیر المیزان کے سلسلے, تفسیر المیزان جو علامہ طباطبائی نے لکھی ہے, اس کے سلسلے میں آیت اللہ شہید متحری فرماتے ہیں, بولتے تم کیا سمجھو کہ تفسیر المیزان کیا ہے؟ وما ادراک ما تفسیر المیزان, تم کیا سمجھو تفسیر المیزان کیا ہے؟ تفسیر المیزان کو جب تک 200 سال تک حوض علمیہ میں پڑھایا نہیں جائے تب تک اس کی قدر تم پہچان نہیں سکو گے. 200 سال تک حوض علمیہ نجف اور قم میں جب پڑھایا جائے گا تب تمہیں پتہ چلے گا تفسیر میزان کا مقام کیا ہے. چلیے یعنی تفسیر المیزان کو چھوڑیے. یہاں جو ہے وہ میں ہمیشہ سوچا کرتا تھا القدیر ہم جانتے کہ کیا کام ہے, اصلا انپیرلڈ, لیکن جو ہے اس کا مقام امیر المومنین کے نزدیک کیا ہے, بس یہ ہمیشہ سوچا کرتا تھا. ایک مرتبہ میں رات کو سویا, خواب میں کیا دیکھا؟ خواب میں دیکھا کہ ایک مرتبہ عالم محشر برپا ہے, قیامت کا منظر ہے, میں کھڑا ہوں اور دور سے دیکھ رہا ہوں, اور دیکھ رہا ہوں کہ تمام شیعہ جو ہے ایک جگہ جو ہے وہ جمع ہو رہے ہیں. غور سے دیکھا تو کیا دیکھا, وہ جگہ کون سی جو ہے وہ حوض کوثر. اور حوض کوثر میں دیکھا تو دیکھا تمام لوگوں کے درمیان جو ایک نورانی شخصیت ہے جو بار بار جو ہے وہ اجازت دیتی ہے شیعوں کے آ کے جو ہے حوض کوثر سے پانی پی لو. جب دیکھا تو پہچانا کہ یہ تو ہمارے مولا, آپ کے میرے مولا امیر المومنین صلوات اللہ وسلام علیہ, یہ تو امیر المومنین ہے. سبھی کو جو ہے کہتے ہیں آؤ پانی پی لو, آؤ میرے شیعہ پانی پیو, دن بھر ہر زندگی بھر تم میرے بیٹے کا ماتم کیا, آؤ پانی پی لو. ہمیشہ جو ہے یا علی کہتے تھے لو ماتم کی لو. اپنے بچوں کو جب گرتے تھے تو سکھاتے تھے کہو یا علی مدد, پانی پی لو. ایک مرتبہ کسی نے آواز دی کہ علامہ عبد الحسین امینی آ رہے ہیں. بس جیسے ہی آواز سنی تو جیسے میں نے سنی, اب یہ محمد تقی بتا رہے ہیں, میں نے سنی کہ آواز آ رہے تو لوگوں نے بھی سنی. ایک مرتبہ مجمع جو ہے ہٹ گیا, علامہ امینی آ رہے ہیں, علامہ امینی آ رہے ہیں. ایک مرتبہ جو ہے یاد رکھیے گا, وہ دوسری بات ہے یہ جو قرآن نے کی ہے. دنیا میں تو حیات طیبہ, آخرت میں جو ہے ہم تمہیں ایسا مقام دیں گے, ایسا اجر دیں گے کہ تم تصور نہیں کر سکو گے. بے حسن بہترین وجہ, سنیے گا کس طرح. بس 1-2 منٹ, پھر 1-2 منٹ کا مسائل پھر تمام.
کہتے ایک مرتبہ میں نے دیکھا لوگوں جو ہے وہ ہٹنا شروع ہوئے, علامہ امینی آ رہے. اب میں نے سوچا دیکھوں یا علامہ امینی آ رہے ہیں, امیر المومنین سامنے کرسی پر بیٹھے حوض کوثر پر, اور یہ تو میری دلی خواہش تھی کہ ہمیشہ جان سکوں کہ امیر المومنین کس طرح جو ہے وہ, امیر المومنین کی نگاہ میں جو ہے وہ علامہ امینی کی اور الغدیر کی اہمیت کیا ہے. ایک مرتبہ دیکھا جب تک ایک ایک شیعہ آتے تھے تو مولا بیٹھے تھے, کہتے تھے آ کے پانی پی لو, آ کے پانی پی لو, مگر جیسے علامہ امینی آئے مولا جو ہے ایک مرتبہ کھڑے ہو گئے. مولا جو ہے اب تشریف کو جو ہے بیٹھے رکھے تھے, کھڑے ہو گئے. علامہ امینی کے پاس جاتے ہیں, ہاتھ میں اس ہاتھوں کو لیا, کہتے اللہ عبد الحسین تم آئے ہو ہمارے پاس, آؤ اب ہم تمہیں جزا دیں گے. تو ایک مرتبہ کہتے کہ پانی پینا ہے, آ جاؤ پانی پی لو. کہتے کہ میں نے دیکھا, سید محمد تقی بہار العلوم کہہ رہے ہیں, میں نے دیکھا جیسا علامہ امینی جھکنے جا رہے تھے پانی پینے کے لیے تو جو ہے وہ مولا نے ہاتھ پکڑ لیا. کہتے عبد الحسین تم جھکو گے نہیں. کہتے مولا جو ہے وہ پانی پینا, آپ نے تو کہا تھا پانی پی لیجئے کوثر کا. کہتے پانی پینا لیکن تم نہیں پیو گے. تو مولا سمجھ نہیں پایا, کہتے کھڑو رہو ہم تمہیں پلائیں گے. محمد تقی بہار العلوم کہتے ہیں کہ وہ جھکتے مولا اپنے ہاتھوں میں چلوں میں پانی بھرتے ہیں, اپنے ہاتھوں کو علامہ امینی کے دہان پر لاتے, کہتے عبد الحسین امینی تمہیں پتہ نہیں تم نے ہم پر کیا احسان کیا, ہمارے ہاتھ سے تم حوض کوثر کا پانی پیو گے. ایک مرتبہ جو ہے مولا حوض کوثر کا پانی علامہ امینی کو پلاتے اور پھر ایک دعا کرتے ہیں, کہتے اللہم بید وجہہ کما بید وجہنا وجوہنا. کہتے پروردگار جس طرح اس نے ہماری شان میں جو ہے اضافہ کیا الغدیر لکھ کے, پروردگار آخرت میں تو اس کی شان میں اضافہ کر دے. امیر المومنین جو ہے جو مستجاب الدعوات ہے, ایک مرتبہ ہاتھ اٹھا کے کہے کہ اللہم بید وجہہ کما بید وجوہنا, کہ جس طرح اس نے ہمیں سرخ رو کیا, جس نے ہمیں سرفراز کیا, پروردگار تو اسے بھی سرفراز کر دے. یہی چیز تھی, یہی وہ بات ہے جو آیت کہتی ہے کہ آخرت میں اگر ایمان ہے, عمل صالح ہے اور بے ناب احسن اگر جو انجام دو گے تو دنیا میں پروردگار عالم جو ہے حیات طیبہ دے گا, اور آخرت میں ایسا مقام, ایسا اجر, ایسا کمپنسیشن دے گا کہ انسان تصور نہیں کر سکتا. مولا کے ہاتھ سے پانی پینا کوئی معمولی بات ہے, پانی پینا کوئی معمولی بات ہے, حوض کوثر پر آنے کی اجازت ملنی کوئی معمولی بات ہے, اور پھر پانی پینا پلایا جانا مولا کے ہاتھ سے, اور پھر جو ہے وہ مولا اللہ کے پاس دعا کرے کہ آخرت میں پروردگار اس علامہ امینی کو اس طرح سرخ رو کر کہ دنیا دیکھتی رہ جائے. اس کو کہتے ہیں کہ وہ نجزیکم احسن ما کانوا یعملون. لیکن مسئلہ یہی ہے کہ یہ حیات طیبہ ہے, لیکن جب حیات خبیثہ اپنی مظاہرت, اپنی ظاہر پنے پر آ جاتی ہے نا, تو پھر کربلا نظر آتا ہے, اور اس طرح نظر